Welcome to San Mateo County Today. Conversations with government leaders throughout San Mateo County. Here's your host, Marshall Wilson.
It's October here on the peninsula, and that can only mean one thing. It's election season. Welcome to San Mateo County Today. I'm your host, Marshall Wilson. Today we're going to learn about two big issues going on here in the county. The first is Measure X in the San Mateo Foster City Elementary School District. That's a bond measure to help relieve overcrowding in the classrooms. Opponents say it's coming at too high of a price. Then we're going to be joined by Mark Church, our Chief Elections Officer here in San Mateo County, who's going to tell us about how, for the first time in California history, we're going to have an all-mail-in ballot countywide. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to San Mateo County Today. I'm your host, Marshall Wilson. I'm joined now by Joan Rosas, the Superintendent of the Foster City Elementary School District, and Audrey Ng, the President of the School Board. They're here to tell us about Measure X, which is a $148 million bond measure that voters in their district are going to be looking at right now with the San Mateo County all-mail-in ballot election. So let's start out by asking, what is Measure X? Joan?
This is a wonderful opportunity for us to tell our community about this measure, and so thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. San Mateo Foster City School District is experiencing a serious overcrowding situation in our schools. Let me give you a couple of examples. In Foster City Elementary School has enough students that they run 3 lunch periods and 3 recesses in order to ensure that the students can get through lunch and be able to play on a playground that provides enough space for them. Brewer Island, for example, was originally built for 350 students. It's now at 700. We've added portables and added more portables. In San Mateo, if you go up the 92, you'll see cranes and you'll see an area that's being redeveloped. Station Green. The students who come from Station Green will go to Sunnybray Elementary School. So our schools in the San Mateo and Foster City Elementary School District are overcrowded. And an example also is that I was asking, how many classrooms do we have? Should we need to open more classes in our district? We have 3 classrooms that we can use at this present time in Foster City. We have 4 that we can use in San Mateo. This will not address the need that's coming. The expected enrollment growth is 200 students every year for the next 10 years.
Well, let me ask you this. How is the money going to be spent to relieve overcrowding? What is going to be done at all these different schools?
Good question, good question. For 18 months, a group called the Next Steps Advisory Committee worked in the communities of Foster City and San Mateo to gather the voices of the community to ask, where should the space be added for these students? The decision was made that the areas in San Mateo where the space was needed most was George Hall Elementary to handle the overcrowding from Bay Meadows, Sunnybray Elementary to handle Station Green, and North Central, where 1,500 students live. We also know that there's a bump up in San Mateo to the middle schools. All 3 middle schools will be affected. So there are additional classrooms being planned for all 3 middle schools. In Foster City, there's a need for an additional school. The schools there have already been built beyond capacity. So the idea is to build at Charter Square, to build a 4th school, and to add space at Foster City Middle School, Bowditch Middle School.
So Audrey, let's get you involved in this discussion. What are you hearing from the parents out there and the people in the community about the bond measure? If you can tell us more also about how they want to see the money spent or not spent. So I know there's an opposition. We'll get that in a moment. What do you hear out there in the community?
People at the elementary schools already feel the overcrowding. They see the traffic, they see how dangerous it is for students to walk to school or ride their bikes to school because parents are coming from outside of the neighborhood to drop off their children. Because, for example, in Foster City, the Foster City Elementary is overcrowded already, as Dr. Rosas explained. There are almost 900 students there. So more students who should be going there, who live in that area, are being overflowed to another school across town, Audubon Elementary. So parents are driving across town to get their children there, which again makes it more dangerous for the people who live there and are trying to walk to the school. So a number of parents are already aware of our overcrowded situation. At the middle schools, at Bowditch Middle Schools, 4 classrooms were declared uninhabitable. It was condemned this summer. So that middle school is already at over 1,000. I think we're at 1,070 students right now. It's only built for about 900 students. So we're beyond capacity there. Parents are feeling it. And their children are on those playgrounds and being impacted because there's not enough space for children to play. As Dr. Rosas explained, there are some schools with 3 periods, and not even periods, there are times scheduled for for lunch and for recess. Is just so impacted that parents are feeling it, that students are feeling it with all the lack of space for them to play and to relieve a little bit of their energy before coming back to the classroom for educational experience.
I have a 7-year-old myself, and I do see that need for them to get out and run and just get that energy out there.
And I would add another piece to that, schools often would like to have an additional flex room where parents might be able to store and bring kids in for art. We have Art in Action program. We don't have the additional classroom space for Art in Action, for example. So where do students come in for rainy day PE? Where do they do the additional art? Where would they lay out a science lab? These extra classrooms are not available.
So the opposition wrote on the official ballot measure that in 2010, voters in the district did pass a parcel text to support smaller class sizes. So that's already been passed. And then a few years ago, the district did go out with a bond measure that was defeated by the voters.
Yes, it was.
So can you tell us what that parcel tax has been used for and what has changed now about the bond measure that's now before the voters?
Right, the parcel tax was funds for day-to-day running of the schools. And we were able to avoid furlough days that some districts had to do because of the budget cuts during the recession. So that's what the parcel tax went towards. Now, you also mentioned a bond that did not pass. Well, what we did after the bond was we put together a volunteer committee of community members to study our overcrowding. We still have overcrowding. So this committee of community members studied the issues, looked at the overcrowding situation, and engaged the community in a broad dialogue about what they want to see happen in their schools. We're in this together, and we know that our schools are overcrowded. Now, how do we address that? So we held 95 community sessions. We invited the public, we talked to them. We had an online survey that over 4,400 people completed and submitted. We looked at all those responses, and what we have before us, Measure X, the projects on Measure X are reflective of the feedback that we got from the community. And we have broad-based support for Measure X. We have elected officials who support it. Senator Jerry Hill has endorsed, Assemblymember Kevin Mullen has endorsed, Supervisor Carol Groom, San Mateo Mayor Maureen Fresquet, Foster City Mayor Art Kiesel. We have community members, business leaders, all supporting our bond measure. So we are very confident that this is what the community wants, and this is what we're bringing forth to the voters.
Now, if I live in your district and I've got, say, my elementary school down the street, and I want to know what's specifically going to happen to a particular school, how do I get that kind of information?
That information is available on our website. So we have a link that says Measure X. You click on Measure X and it'll take you to a page that explains what Measure X will do and the projects that are part of Measure X.
Now let's get back to the dollars and cents is what the opposition is coming about. What does this mean for the actual property owner in the San Mateo Foster City Elementary School District? It's a $148 million bond measure. As a homeowner, as a property owner, what does that mean to me?
It will be $14.80 per $100,000 assessed value.
Okay.
So for example, you bought your home several years ago, say it's worth $500,000. So you take the $14.80, I'll round it to 15, a little bit easier to do, times 5, $75 for the whole year is what you will pay. So again, if you want to break that down per month, it's just a couple of dollars per month is what you'll pay.
The assessed valuation of the house, not necessarily today's market value of the home.
Exactly, not the market value, it's your assessed value. Yes, thank you for the clarification.
I know that always gets a little bit tricky with people as well. What are we seeing in Foster City and San Mateo? And is this something that was predicted a number of years ago? I know in the peninsula we had back in the baby boom era, a huge number of student growth. Then in the 80s and 90s there was a big decline, and now we're really back to this boom, which I think we're really seeing across the Bay Area.
We are.
So was this predicted, and did we know we had to prepare for this?
We do have a demographer that works with the district, and he gives us projections out 10 years. And this is the reason that there was a previous bond request. However, as board member our trustee has mentioned, it did not pass because it maybe wasn't the very best plan. So that was why the community went back out and looked for another way to approach the problem. So it has been something that's been going on for a while.
And you're the biggest elementary school district in the county,
Yes,
correct?
we
are. How many middle schools, elementary schools, and tell us a little bit more about the district itself and some of your demographics.
Okay, 16 elementary schools across San Mateo and Foster City, 4 middle schools, and I guess I should include that one of those elementary schools is actually a K-8, yes. So we've experimented with that programming also. It's a very popular structure. So that's our school district demographic.
So if you do have additional classrooms, is that going to be more teachers as well? Are we going to see a significant rise in the number of staff members, and how will that be paid for as well?
So increasing enrollment also comes with increasing dollars for the students, so then that relates to how you manage the staffing.
The money you're getting from the state for
Correct.
So that'll fall in line.
Yes.
Do you anticipate there'll be another measure to come up and help pay for that staffing level, or are you basically trying to carry over the brick and mortar now, and the staffing will come later?
Well, the bond covers facilities, and we are limited by that. We cannot pay for salaries with that bond measure.
Okay.
And the funding for staffing comes from the state, so it's a completely different funding stream.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here. Any final comments? We have about a minute left.
We're just very excited about this opportunity to increase the facilities in our district because our schools are overcrowded, and there is a serious issue, and it's here and it's now.
Yes, we definitely need to do this. We have more students than we have facilities to accommodate. We should have been starting our construction already. Unfortunately, we are at a point where we are beyond capacity. We need to do this.
All right, terrific. Well, I want to thank you, Audrey and Joan, for joining us on San Mateo County today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back to San Mateo County Today. I'm your host, Marshall Wilson. Now I'm joined by Mark Church, our Chief Elections Officer, who's going to tell us how to vote here in San Mateo County. And if you didn't know it, we're making history. We are the first county in California that's going to conduct an all mail-in ballot here in 2015. So, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Marshall.
So tell us, how does this work and how did it come about?
Well, you're right. This is the first time in the history of the state of California that a county will be conducting an all-mailed ballot election countywide for a local consolidated municipal school and special district election. And so the state of California will be looking at the effects of the all-mail ballot election, how it affects all segments of the community, and how it affects turnout and election costs. This came about as a result of an expansion of our existing pilot program. Initially, the legislature enacted a pilot program for Yolo County, an all-mail ballot election program for Yolo County. And last year, the state legislature enacted Assembly Bill 2028, which simply expanded that pilot program to include San Mateo County. And the purpose of including San Mateo County was to allow for the collection of data from an urban county to complement the data from Yolo County, which is a rural county. And the idea behind that is to provide the legislature with a more complete picture of the effects of all-mail ballot elections. I think San Mateo County was chosen for this primarily because we are an urban and diverse county. Our all-mail ballot infrastructure is already in place. We have experience in conducting all-mail ballot elections. And there is a growing trend in this county to vote by mail. So this legislation authorizes us to conduct up to 3 all-mail ballot elections over a 3-year cycle, and it expires on January 1 of 2018.
And how are you getting the word out to people? Obviously, thank you for appearing on our show today. This is one means. But I received a postcard at my house informing me about the all-mail-in ballot. So how are you getting the word out to people, and how does it work? I'm the voter. What am I going to see at my house, and how do I get my ballot back?
So it's very, very important that we do get the message out that this is a different kind of election. This is not a traditional polling place election. This is an all-mailed ballot election. So the postcard you received is one example of how we're getting that word out. We will have multiple direct mailings to the registered voters throughout the county. We just sent out a second postcard the other day. We recently sent out our sample ballot, and everyone should be receiving this shortly. And this sample ballot and voter information pamphlet contains valuable information about voting options for the voter. And so we're utilizing mailings, and we're also utilizing traditional media, television, radio, newspaper. We're trying to get public service announcements out, and we'll be using different media platforms such as social media, Twitter, and we will have billboards throughout the county, and of course my bilingual staff is attending numerous community events throughout the county just to get that message out.
And we're saying it's an all-mail-in election, but the truth is you don't necessarily have to mail in your ballot. There's something called, what I understand now, universal polling places that people can go to on election day, and there's also they can go to their city clerk's office, I believe, beforehand and drop them off. So if you can tell us about all those different options.
That's exactly right. Although we call this an all-mailed ballot election, you can still vote in person if you want. And the law requires that we have at least one polling place in each of our 20 cities. In fact, we have 32 polling places throughout the county. And these are called universal polling places. And they are unlike our traditional polling places. They are connected with our countywide voter registration database, so that we will be able to determine in real time whether a person has voted previously, and so that will reduce the amount of provisional ballots. And what the universal polling place means is that you can vote at any location in the county. So if you live in Daly City and you work in Redwood City, you don't have to race home to Daly City to vote. You can go to any one of the universal polling places in Redwood City and receive your specific ballot type for Daly City in Redwood City.
And I think one of the reasons for the mail-in balloting is efficiency on the part of using taxpayer funds most efficiently. And then also, I think you've seen a greater trend now of people voting by mail.
Voting by mail has been the trend, and it's growing in popularity. I think it's growing in popularity simply because it's easy and convenient. We start mailing the ballots out 29 days prior to the election day. Voters can vote in the comfort of their own home and take their time to vote. And so it certainly is the trend and growing in popularity. And as I said, voters can vote in person at any of these universal polling places if they want. And if they find that they haven't mailed the ballot in time, the ballots have to be postmarked by Election Day. And they have to be received by us within 3 days after Election Day in order to be counted by law. But if they're getting close to Election Day and they want to drop it off, they can do so at any one of our 20 drop-off locations throughout the county. The drop-off locations are at each city clerk's office, at every city and town hall in the county, and they're open during Monday to Friday, regular business hours, and on Election Day till 8 p.m.
And with the mail-in balloting, I know this has gone on sometime with absentee balloting, but how am I sure as a voter that my ballot has been received by your office. I fill out my ballot, I make sure I sign the envelope, I have a postage is already provided by you on it, I drop it in the mailbox. How do I know as a voter that you've received my ballot?
If they go to shapethefuture.org, which is our website, www.shapethefuture.org, they can go to the prompt, the voter, and another one, check out my voting status, and it will tell the voter if the ballot has been received by us and when it has been received.
Is that where you get that confidence that, yes, my ballot, my vote counts?
That provides the confidence to the voter to make sure that their ballot has been received.
And this, as we mentioned before, is a pilot program. How do you go about, what are the metrics of success? How do we say this worked, this didn't work? Where does it, you're going to be compiling a lot of information, I'm sure, and comparing it to past elections. How do you gauge success? Or maybe it's not successful, I don't know.
The purpose of the program is to analyze the effects of all-mail ballot elections on the community. And the legislature and the Secretary of State will be looking at the effects and the impacts on voter turnout, demographics, and election costs. And at the conclusion of this election, we will prepare a report and submit it, as we're required to do by law, to the legislature and to the Secretary of State. They will take that data, analyze it, and make a decision as to whether or not to embrace all-mail ballot elections, as some other states have, as they move forward and make decisions regarding election laws affecting the entire state. So what happens here in San Mateo County is very important to the state legislature and to the election process. And I might add that this pilot program is limited to three elections during the 3-year period, and it applies only to local consolidated elections and one local special election.
So here we're taping this at the very start of October. When should I, as a voter, expect to receive my ballot, and how do I go about ensuring that I really am a registered voter and I'm getting, I know what I need to do here for more information?
Well, as I indicated, voters should receive this at any time, beginning of October, and this is the sample ballot. As far as the official ballot is concerned, this will be mailed starting the week of October 5.
Okay.
And it comes in an official looking envelope like this with the county seal, and the ballot will be mailed, the specific ballot for each voter will be mailed to that particular voter together with a return envelope, and this is a postage prepaid envelope. So the voters should complete their ballots, put it in the return envelope, and it's important to remember to sign the envelope on the back side. Signature is required by law, and we do check every signature to verify that it indeed is the signature of the voter.
Do you think this is going to be part of a growing trend? If it's successful, that maybe someday we're going to be voting by mail for the president and senators and everyone else? Where do you see the future of voting going?
Well, I think that's the idea. I think that's what the state legislature is looking at. That's why they have chosen San Mateo County to conduct this pilot program, to use that data to make that decision. We know that other states have embraced all-mail ballot elections, Oregon and Washington and Colorado. And so whether it's an all-mandatory vote-by-mail program or whether it's an opt-in by county vote-by-mail program, we don't know. That would be a decision for the legislature if they do decide to go that route.
Great. Any final thoughts?
Just that it's important to vote. That's the most important thing. I want to remind everyone to please complete these ballots and get out and vote. And whether it's in person or through the mail, we encourage everyone to do that. And again, if anyone has any questions, they can contact us by phone at 650-312-5222. or they can email us at registrar@smcare.org, or they can get more information on our website.
Terrific. Mark Church, our Chief Elections Officer, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to finding out how the returns come out, both for who wins and also on the status of the all-mail-in ballot, how that goes.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us on San Mateo County Today. Please join us again next week. Thank you very much.